While others celebrate the wins,
Yes.
We celebrate the mud.
each episode has a special guest.
Tony-nominated actress, Broadway's Lily Cooper.
Tashir Zameda.
David A. Gregory.
Getting messy with muddy topics.
We are going to be talking about grief journey.
With hilarious moments
Now get over here.
And deep conversations.
I'm ashamed to even admit this, but this is what happened.
This is Into the Mud.
Hi, I'm Alex Cuman.
Hey, and I'm Drew King, and welcome back to Into the Mud podcast, where we discuss the messy and uncertain junctures of life, where growth and self-discovery occur.
We are coming to you live from the Barrow Room at the Mullen in the West Village, and we are thrilled to welcome today's guest.
Richard Riaz Yoder!
Yes!
So exciting. Thanks for being here, Richard.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So, Richard is actually one of my dearest friends. We originally met in tap class. Yeah?
How long ago?
2000.
Don't you dare say. It was a while ago.
2024.
Okay, can I tell a funny story about this?
Yes.
Drew was the first person to congratulate me on a show that I didn't get at first. So Drew came up to me and he was like, "Congratulations! I heard you're going to good speed and you're doing this show." And I looked at him dead in his face and I said, "I didn't get it."
I'm such a monster.
And the way that, first of all, I'm a monster because I was in all of my emotions because I really wanted that job. To see the color go from his face, I mean, he's pale enough, but to see the color go from his face,
what color?
I felt, yeah, exactly. I felt so bad at the time. And then I ended up getting it like a couple weeks later. And then he was doing, because he literally was
So I was
like,
like, see, I was the first one to congratulate you on getting the job.
Exactly,
I knew you had it
exactly.
before you did.
see,
Did you actually know, or did you
No,
just? Oh, okay.
someone had told me, and then I ran up to them and was like, "Hey, oh my God, I heard you're getting the show. We're doing it, blah, 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 blah." But nope, someone had misinformation and relayed that to me.
I mean, but thank goodness, I'd say that he is the one that got me that job. He put the energy out there.
Put the energy
Yeah.
out. We're big
I know,
energy
talk
folks.
a good man into my life too.
I mean,
oh my gosh, I love
let's
it.
go.
So, Richard is a Broadway performer, choreographer, actor, singer, dancer, creative, all of the above. They are originally born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, which we love. And they have done 6 Broadway shows, or 7.
Yes, performed in 6. This one is my 7th.
Yes.
The one that I just did.
So Richard just this past week has opened up Lempicka, the new Broadway musical based on the artist Tamara de Lempicka. Did I say it right?
come on, yes.
Tamara de Lempicka. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful show. And Richard is the associate choreographer on the show.
Yes.
Yay!
Which is something new for me.
What is that? What does it mean to be an associate choreographer?
So basically, when the choreographer is not there, I take their place. Anytime that they need something to be changed, anytime there's new blocking, anytime there's new choreography, whatever happens when the choreographer is not there, I have to take their place. And I have to speak for them when they are not there. And basically just relay whatever information and assist them and kind of like be their backup, which is, when you're putting together a big old show like that, is very much needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredibly
job.
daunting.
Yeah.
Big job.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Is it your first time in a role like that?
So I've been, not on Broadway. I've choreographed a show regionally. I did White Christmas this past year, which was like a dear show to me because I've done it so many times.
And White Christmas was your Broadway debut.
Yes, it
In
was.
2009?
Yes. Wow. It was.
My
so good.
brain, I can't believe I remember
Yeah.
these things. Okay.
Yeah. So I've done that, but I haven't done it at this particular level yet. So this is, it was a big step. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of money online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Millions, literally millions. Broadway shows these days cost millions of dollars to produce. It's
Exactly.
absolutely
That's
insane.
so wild.
So before you even show up to day one of rehearsal, producers and financial backers have to raise sometimes upwards of like $15 million to $20 million just to get, like, for sets, for costumes, for salaries, and then also to make sure they have money in the bank, if the grosses of the shows are going up or down.
I was just about to
It's
say that, yeah,
outrageous.
because you
Pressure
need like
of
a
that
cushion. Yes,
is
exactly.
insane.
Yeah.
That do you feel that like when you are walking in like day to day, do you feel that just like
Yes. I feel it in my bones every single day. And it was something that I really had to something that I really had to settle in my soul. I realized through this that I'm not the best at stress, at dealing with stress.
An area of growth.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. An area of growth. Thank you. Somebody been to therapy.
Yeah.
An area of growth, and I had to let that go. I had to let that go a lot, because if I keep thinking every single day, there's money riding on me, people are betting on me, because literally that's what, when somebody gives you a job, in a way they're betting on you.
Yeah.
I bet that you are going to be able to do what I need you to do on a daily basis. And not in a bad way, but like betting on you because they have confidence and they have faith in you, which is wonderful. But at the same time, it's a lot of armor to put on rather than being able to be free in a room.
How did you get to the point where you you said you've had to like kind of grapple with that? Like, how did you get to that point of being like, I can't let this just like weigh on me every day. I have to like, do you know?
Yeah.
Like, do you know?
Oh no, 100%. I think it was one day in rehearsal, I was starting to forget steps that I was teaching.
Yeah.
And like my friends know me, if I know a step, I will remember it for years. Like
Yeah.
I have no problem recalling a step, a style. That's my thing. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I found myself sometimes in rehearsal just getting in my head rather than just being in the room and just being able to be present. I think a lot of times I kept on thinking of all of the different things that are at stake.
Yeah.
Or the potential future that this could make for me, or anything. It's like all of those things swirling around at once, and it's like you just have to take a breath and just breathe and just let yourself be in a space.
So that brings us to essentially what our muddy topic of this conversation is,
yes.
which is finding your authenticity and maybe your calm in the midst of
Yes.
a career transition.
Yeah.
So although this isn't 100% a career transition for you, because it's still within the theater world, it's still within the dance world, so you have all these transferable skills that you can bring from being a Broadway performer, a dancer on stage, to then going behind the table and being behind the scenes.
Yes.
So although it's not a complete start over from zero, what does it feel like to make that career transition, you know, from dancer to a choreographer?
It really feels like, I mean, even though we talked about this, but it does feel like starting at zero to a certain extent. Just because I've been on the other side of it so long that I'm used to, all I have to do is just come in and know my shit, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But now there's so much more that I have to be present for. I have to be present for the meetings afterwards. I have to know everybody's stuff. I have to, it's just a new way of going about it. And for me, I really had to just figure out ways to calm my mind. That was the biggest thing, because if I go in there with a whole bunch of stress and anxiety, it's going to show up on my work, and just also bring in my authentic self. It's very hard to be your authentic self when there's stress in the way the whole time. So that is the biggest thing that I have found for myself. And also just giving your space to be yourself. What is your natural state of being without stress? That's the thing that I think that I'm working on the most.
I think like this idea of like being yourself is so like we talk about all the time, like just like be authentic, be yourself.
Yeah, what that mean though?
Right?
It's
Like,
hard.
It's so hard to know. Like, I am right now figuring out like who am I really, and what does it even mean to ask that question? Who am I? Like I have all these words that I could be, but and this is really a question for both of you. Is like, what do you guys do to figure out like who you are? I have found lately that just like kind of being in solitude, even just like listening to different types of music, doing, going out with different friends and having conversations about different things. Like every new experience that I have or thing that I just sort of take in, I'm like, okay, I like this and I don't like that. And that just gets me a little bit
life experience.
like just
Like what it is.
just what it is. And so what are some of the things that like you have done to kind of figure out who you are authentically? Because it's such this buzzword, like like authenticity, right? It's
It's like hashtag.
hashtag be authentic.
Exactly.
It's like, well, what the
Yes.
fuck does that mean?
Exactly.
What does it mean?
I think, so there's a quote, I'm probably going to mess it up, but joy is your original self. And when you follow that, you are closer to your original being. I messed it up, but it's something like that.
That's beautiful though.
But it's something that I try to do. So when I think of my authentic self, it's what brings me joy. What that is the base layer of what I try to do when I find myself, when I'm trying to be authentic or whatever like that. And it's what brings you joy on a daily basis. And so for me, that might be dressing up a certain way. That might be listening to music, finding out what foods I like. I mean, any of those particular things.
Yeah, from the small to the
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how can that transition into your artistic expression?
Totally.
Because I think one thing that I always used to do was separate who I am as a person as opposed to the art that I made. Be it dancing, singing, I always thought of performing was a way to make me money. I never really thought about a way that I could express who I am as a person and also what I'm going through at the moment, which is what an artist does, takes life experience and then put it into art. How can I do those two things at once?
Well, and I think it's also, I've had this conversation with so many comedians about like separating your work from your work from yourself, right? So that you don't get so connected with like, if it's not well received, you're not like, oh, I'm a bad person, right?
Yeah.
But I think also it's so important to connect yourself with your work, not in the way of like, how is this going to be received, but in the way of like, what do I just want to put out without even thinking about what the outcome is going to be? Just like, how am I expressing myself? So like that sort of pushing out of it is important to be so connected with, but where the disconnect has to be is how are people going to receive it and how are they going to, what's the feedback going to be?
Yeah. Not having the consequence of other people's opinions on your work, but the freedom to move yourself through or move yourself through your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think is there anything that's complicated for you about, like you just said, the way that you artistically express yourself? As a dancer, it's, stand here, at least in a Broadway show, stand here, lift this girl, do this step, go. And of course you can bring an essence of yourself to that, into that choreography, into that movement. But how vulnerable does it feel then, in line with this, to produce your own work and put that forward? Because then that intrinsically is coming from you wholeheartedly. It's not you interpreting somebody else's movement. It's all your own being and yourself that you're putting forward. And then asking an audience of 1,100, 1,200, 13 people to be like, what do I think about this? Or the internet. So how do you deal with the insecurity of putting yourself authentically into your creation and then receiving feedback about that, good or bad?
Yeah. So I think I used to do that a whole bunch during the pandemic. I would make videos all the time, and I loved it because it was a way for me to express myself, and it was a way for me to keep dancing and everything like that. But it also became crippling at the same time because I didn't feel like I kept thinking about what other people were thinking so much that I started to retreat from that.
Yep.
And I found that was a big thing that I needed to work through, that I'm still working through. It's one thing to put yourself on stage, but it's another thing to like really bare your soul. And then what are people going to think about it? Are the people going to think that it's cheesy? Are people going to laugh at it? And it's trying to get to the point where you're confident in yourself enough. And I think that comes from the inner work that you do. More than anything else, because to be able to steel yourself enough that so much so that other people's words don't affect you, but not so much that you can't get that the muddy of yourself, the soft interior. Oh, that sounds terrible. The soft. Try soft interior.
We talking soft interior?
I know exactly.
Let's bring in the boys.
Go!
Oh my God. Anyway, we're trying to like figure out how can we do those things at the same time. So I haven't mastered that yet, but I think it's really just being able to be calm with yourself and at home with yourself first. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I love that. I just saw Esther Perel a couple nights ago at, she's like a relationship and sex therapist, and she was talking a lot about how we have sort of we lose our sense of play, right? And I think
Yes.
I think just like, I just keep hearing like, as we're having this conversation, just like the work becomes difficult when
life gets in the way.
When life gets in the way, and when play stops becoming, especially in such creative fields like just dance, Broadway, singing, comedy, any creative, and really any field at all. But like, especially in creative fields, like when you stop feeling that sense of play, that's when it becomes work. Right?
Yes,
and like,
exactly.
And when you start to get scared of making a mistake, right? Versus thinking about like when you were a kid and you're just playing outside. There is no such thing as a mistake when you are playing, right? And like, I think it's so important. I have to constantly, that's what stage I'm in right now, of like constantly reminding myself, like, this is fun. You got into this because this is fun and it lights you up. So like, keep coming back to that. Yeah. Like keep getting back to that.
That's your original sense of joy coming out.
That's the joy. Yes.
That's your original, that is your true self.
Yeah.
That joy.
That's authenticity.
Yeah. Hashtag authenticity.
Authentic.
But no, before the world comes in and tells you how to act, before the world comes in and beats you down, before the world comes in and shows you what reality is.
Yeah.
The reality of the world can be very sad sometimes, but there's also so much joy in it and so much beauty, but it's also connecting to that as much as you can. Yeah. Christian Borle would always, he would have these figurines everywhere in his dressing room. And for me being a nerd, I loved it. I loved going to see it in his room. But he was like, it reminds me to be a kid and to find the play in every day that you exist. And I just loved that about him because that's what he really did. He was really playing and he was having fun every day on stage, and being able to keep that even though there's a gigantic Broadway show that is depending on you. I mean, he was one of the big leads in our show. He was one of the main draws. But he still had to remind himself to play and to have fun, because I think about it, being a lead in a Broadway show, that is a lot of pressure. As cool as it is, and in like Tony Awards and all this stuff, it's a lot of pressure. Because me walking in as an ensemble member, I just come in and I do my one thing, because everything else is so big that I don't necessarily think about it. But coming in as somebody that it's in a management position in the show, it can be like daunting sometimes. And then to be a lead in a show can be crazy, I'm sure. So being able to find that sense of play, going back to the sense of play, the sense of joy, going back to that, how do you infuse that feeling into your everyday work so that your work doesn't feel stifled or stressed? Because you can tell when somebody's made something under duress.
You can tell the energy that someone puts out when they're in that constricted state.
Exactly.
I think of joy as like the expansive, like receiving energy. And
exactly.
And I can feel, even like when I go on stage and I'm in that place, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good show. Like this is gonna be fun.
There's energy bouncing back.
It's the dialogue with the audience too, which is so fun. But if I'm having a bad day, if I'm doing whatever, and I feel myself just tighten up energetically, physically.
Y'all are about to get some sour jokes today.
You're gonna get sour. I'm gonna be not phoning it in, but like I'm gonna go on the script. I'm not gonna be open to receiving your energy, and it's like, I have lately been trying to figure out what are the things I need to do to prime myself to be in that open state before I walk in the door of the club. Not even like before I walk on stage, but like,
And it's okay to have a routine. I think when I was coming up and doing like shows and things like that, I didn't want to do too many things that I feel like I would have to behold into every day. Like how some people say prayer or how some people do yoga. I wanted to be able to be free of that. I was like, I just want to be able to just come in. But then as I started working more, I realized that like having your own particular way of starting your day is so special, and it's so important because it sets you up. I've started my day with doing something that I want to do. I've started my pre-show ritual doing something that brings me joy, that puts me in a good spot. And I think that's one thing that I tend to grapple with every now and again.
Totally.
Yeah.
So regarding play and joy again, for me and where I'm feeling in my career, as we've all discussed many a times, but I'm feeling the closedness of being in the biz. I'm feeling the like, I don't know if I like this anymore. I'm feeling scared and like shutting in by it. And so that's the opposite of play and the opposite of joy. So something that used to bring me joy is now shifting. Was there a shift for you that made you feel like, oh, I'm starting to feel less joy as a performer, but then feeling more expansive and joyful as a choreographer. Was that part of the transition, or do you still love both as equal parts?
Yeah.
Or, and in the choreography realm, can you talk about when you are genuinely, authentically living in your joy in choreography? What does that feel like for you?
Yes.
I asked you like 7
No,
questions.
it's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. I was like, let me just.
It's like an SAT question.
I know. Oh God, please don't put me through that again. Oh.
Essay. We need an intro. 3 paragraphs.
The intro. Well,
And a
I like
bow.
long walks on the beach. No. So going back to, I think when I started to feel it, when I was in Some Like It Hot, first of all, that I loved that show so much just because I was getting to tap dance, I was getting to sing, we had big jazz dances, we were doing all these things, but I could kind of feel, it was a lot of fun. The people were everything. We had the best time, but I could start to feel that I did not feel like I was being able to be my authentic self on stage. Because when I was on stage, it was like, I have to play this straight person, and I'm just partnering a woman the whole time, which is, I actually do love partnering. So for me, that was one of the joys. It wasn't necessarily that I was a straight person doing it, but it was like, I got to flip this bitch around, and I got to like I love doing that stuff.
Yeah.
It makes me feel strong. And so I tried to latch on to as many things that I liked about it, but I could feel myself getting very mundane in doing the same thing. It just didn't feel like it was pushing me in a new direction, because I had done shows like that before. Not on Broadway, but I have done shows akin to that regionally and in the workshop. And it was actually a light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic, but at the same time, I found a lot of stuff about myself during the pandemic that I wasn't really able to bring into this new phase of life. So I'm like, it feels like I'm moving forward, but then this show is putting me back in a mindset where I was not particularly wanting to be in.
Yeah.
So that, I could kind of feel that. And then I got the chance to choreograph White Christmas. So when I went into that room, I was myself. Yeah. Because there was nothing that I needed to adhere to. If anything, these people have to adhere to me, not like, I'm going to be some taskmaster or something like that. But for me, I get to go in there in my authentic self, and I can but I can go in and I can just exist and play and create. And that was one of the things. I would do that during the day, and then I would do my show at night. And then I found that I had more fun doing my show because I was able to get this release, and I was able to work on something during the day. And it was problem solving. It was making up stuff on the spot. It was seeing my choreography come to fruition. Something that was in my head is now on a stage.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone about this last night, Sydney actually, one of our past guests, about when how different it feels when you specifically are asked to be in the room. When someone seeks you out for what you are doing,
the license you have,
and the license you have, versus like, hey, come be a part of this, or come audition, or tell us why you think you should be a part of our thing, versus, hey, we want you specifically because we like what you do, and how differently that energy feels when you're like, I don't have to hold back. You just want more of me, okay? Then like I'll give you, and But to get to that point, you have to first figure out kind of who you are. It's this sort of give and take of like, how do you build out who you are as a person so that people know that we need Richard for this. Richard is the person for this.
We actually just went through this because when they asked us to do this concert with Kristen, it was awesome. It was so
fun.
Tell
us about, by the way, tell the listeners.
Oh yeah, we Richard and I made my Broadway debut with Richard in 2015. Yes. That was your second Broadway show.
Yes.
It was called On the 20th Century with Roundabout Theatre Company, starring Kristen Chenoweth and Peter Gallagher. And we just are very close to the 10-year anniversary of the show, but we came back for a benefit gala for Roundabout Theatre Company last week, and Richard and I were dancing in that with Kristen Chenoweth.
And it was so fun. It was so fun, and also it was one of those moments where they specifically asked us.
Yeah.
It was an ask of us, so there was no auditioning, there was nothing. It was, please come and be yourself, but even within that, there were still like little confines that we had to like work within. And one of the things was the costumes. Like I had my hair out, and I feel very proud to have this hair. It feels good to have it. And the first thing that they said was that, oh, we're gonna put you guys in hats. And it was like these porter hats. And that was like a world that I literally just got done being a porter in a show. And there's something about tap dancing and it being seen as a also a work in servitude. Seeing that and being a Black person that is on this earth, and it just felt so strange, even though I was enjoying the experience so much. But then all of a sudden it was like, we're gonna put you in these like cheesy little vests, and then we're gonna cover your hair. And then I was like, oh, this is what this feels like. Even though I was so happy to do it, it still felt like I was like, I was almost like I was teeter-tottering the whole time, because I was like, I could easily fall back into being exactly what somebody wants me to be, or I could work towards seeing how I could marry this with who I am now. And one of the things was, I was very sneaky, but I just kept saying the hat wouldn't fit. Which they didn't.
Literally
Here's the
didn't fit.
thing.
They were
They
cutting
didn't.
the hat to try and get it to
Yes.
fit on his head. There was like a slit in the back, and it was like not working.
Exactly.
I'm like, guess what? The hat doesn't fit anymore.
Yes.
The hat doesn't. The hat doesn't fit anymore.
Oh my gosh, that is such an interesting way to put it, because it's literally this, what you're asking me to be does not fit with who I am in this moment anymore. And then I brought it up and I was like, maybe can we not do the vests? And so we ended up having a neutral look that didn't wipe away who we are. And that was so important to me, to be able to keep that, because in this business we have to let go of who we are so often, which can be freeing, because you can like play a part on stage sometimes, or you can live an entire life in the span of 2.5 hours or 15 minutes on TV or whatever it is. But sometimes it's nice to keep who you are and be who you are. So being in those rooms again, because that was like 9 years ago, we've changed a lot. A lot has changed. There were people that had kids, people that got married. We're still single, so not much change.
Hi.
And so it's like,
for long.
Y'all ready? But so it's like trying to figure out how we can bridge those gaps, I think, like bringing your authentic self again into it. So I think that for me is what that was a muddy experience. A muddy experience is trying to figure out how can I still be who I am, even though I'm in this particular boat.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in line with that as well, you've spent so much of your career in these predominantly white traditional musical theater shows. I mean, with the exception of Beautiful Shuffle Along, which is so spectacular. But you've had to abide by, I don't know, this aesthetic and this whole idea of like very cisgendered, heteronormative, white musicals. And what does that mean for you now as you move forward as a choreographer and trying to, so much of your Broadway identity is rooted in shows that don't 100% resonate with you. Of course, they do in some capacity, but in some ways they don't. And with your identity, and as your identity is ever changing, how do you hope to bring that, I'm going to say it again, authenticity into your choreography? And do you hope to challenge? Maybe challenge isn't the right word, but is there a way you want to be able to challenge what those shows are and how you would re-choreograph moving forward?
So I think one of the things also about challenge is that to me puts on, and it's good to challenge. It's good to challenge, and it's good to rise above something. But for me, I think I just try to center myself in who I am and create from there. And then whatever happens after that. So it's funny that you say that about some of those older shows, because I can literally remember during a casting session, one of the choreographers saying, "We already have one, we don't need another," talking about a Black person in the ensemble. So that gives you an idea about the kind of shows that I've been in, which I think some people don't even that some people don't even realize that they say things like that. And this is a very well-known choreographer. And
recently too. It's not it's not like 40 years ago. It's like
no,
yesterday.
that's like within the past 10 years, or even some people like yesterday.
Yeah.
I think being in this room recently that I have been in, it's almost crazy for my brain to wrap my head around, because there were so many Black and queer people in the room in leadership positions. There was one moment I was looking at Cody, my friend who is a stage manager, and he was leading this room, or he was leading this tech rehearsal, and he was this younger Black man that was in this room of entire white people. And to see him relaxed in who he is and able to be free in who he is was very inspiring. Not just because he's a leader in that moment, but because he's being who he is. Yeah. And so I think that is the thing, trying to figure out, and I was doing this before, during a little bit after the pandemic. I was like taking a whole bunch of different dance classes. I was dancing in heels. I was trying to tap to music that was not necessarily what I had tapped to before. I always am a big love of jazz music, but then I also, like, as a queer person, as I was about to say something. As a faggot, like, basically, I'm like, what kind of music? I know. I was just like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know how PG this is. They can edit it out.
No, let's go.
But like, and I use that because I take that power back in that word. I feel that I have made that. I've turned that into something that is joyful for me, because, you know, as a kid growing up, I mean, I would walk out of the classroom snapping and skipping. Yeah. The way people would yell at me, and so being able to take that back for me is something that I have like had a lot of muddy with, like figuring out how can I make this mine again. But anyway, thinking about what can I bring as my queer self into the tap dancing, whether it be music, whether it be my flamboyancy, whether it be dance steps, whether it be style. Like, what is that? What is that without the golden age musical wash? Yeah. What would that look like? What would that be? So that's kind of what my muddy is, because also it's some people only want the exact.
Yeah, correct.
Some people want to be stuck in a world where things don't change, which. Change is very scary, and I get it. Change is very scary in any world, but I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I love that. That is so amazing. So what I also want to say is, you have gotten in the groove of being a performer. You know, generally you've worked with some good you've worked with a lot of amazing choreographers. You've had credits. You've worked consistently, and now you're wading into the uncertain territory of choreography of, I don't know when I'm going to get that next job as a choreographer. How does it feel to move from a space of comfort, even though we know nothing in the business is ever comfortable?
Exactly.
How does it feel to move from a space of comfort in performance into the unknown, more vulnerable waters of creativity and choreography?
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's crazy because we've worked so hard to learn and acclimate ourselves to whatever this business is, which is like, okay, I audition, I do this, and now I'm going into meetings where people are like, just talk. And it's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. I think that was one of the things I really had to learn. I was like, oh, people really just want to see who you are, because you're going to be in the room every day just being yourself, rather than like, I have to learn these 18 bars, or I have to learn this choreography. It's like, no, what do you bring as a person yourself? So it's also different because I'm used to, like, maybe there might be 10 people in the ensemble, or 10 men and 10 women, or whatever like that. And now it's like there's one person. And also the fact that since I started kind of like moving into this area a little bit later in the year, most of the work has already been taken for this summer coming up.
Yeah, that's
being able to do a summer job or anything like that. So really the main thing that I've been working on is just staying present in the moment, doing my job as best I can, in this moment and then just seeing where it takes me. Because hopefully, as we know, word of mouth travels. And we hope that in a good way that I figure out that people have been speaking my name in rooms that I am not currently in.
Yeah.
And that's really the only thing that I can do at this moment. I'm still teeter-tottering between performing and not performing. And yeah, it's difficult because also it feels like starting at square one, even though we don't, but still it's, I don't know, it kind of reminds me when I was auditioning a whole bunch when I first got to the city.
You were going to say a year and you didn't say the year.
What?
When I got here in 2000,
Yes, that's
when
what
I
it was.
first started auditioning.
When I first got,
last year.
But no, I mean, I remember having so much fun in those days, like blockheads. Like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
remember getting cut and going to blockheads.
Alex doesn't know Blockheads.
I don't know Blockheads.
Blockheads was just like the
Oh my gosh.
trashy.
I
knew
still
it
around?
because-
Is it still around?
No, they closed, unfortunately.
Because I feel like I feel like I know you at this point, and I feel like if you had been here when I
I
said
would've.
blockheads, I
Yeah.
feel like there would have been an immediate reaction.
we would have been there in a
I
heartbeat,
know.
drinking like sugary
Yes.
gasoline
Oh
filled
my gosh.
margaritas.
Okay, I know that bar.
But
I know,
yeah,
I know
you
that.
know that-
I know that bar.
Yes.
The
Yes.
watering hole where all the
Yeah.
cut music theater dancers go to lament the trials and tribulations of the world.
Yeah.
It kind of like in auditions, and I remember that, and I'm trying to figure out how I can bring that joy to this thing that I'm doing now. Even though it's terrifying, even though it's unknown, it's like, how can I still find that? Because even though it was so hard, and even though I was working other jobs, I was handing out stuff on the street for Dwayne Reed all the time, which killed my soul. But at the same time, I actually didn't have that bad of a time.
Yeah.
I didn't have that bad of a time because I still was like trying to figure out like how I can still make it joyful. How can I, and one of the things was spending time with my friends, taking dance classes, taking yoga, doing all of those things that just like, again,
Brings you back to this, like, leading
Yes.
with joy. Just
Yes.
follow the joy.
and know who you are.
Yeah.
Know what you like
who
and
you
what you
are.
don't like.
If there were, or not if there were, for any artists that are listening to this podcast right now, or any aspiring musical theater performers or choreographers that are listening, what would you want to say to them to, inspire or encourage them, or what advice would you want to give them as they move forward in their careers? As someone who's on the other side and is transitioning into something even bigger, what advice would you want to give them to lift them up and encourage them to find their joy? And how do they find it in the midst of such a brutally hard industry?
Somebody said something the other day, and it really kind of snapped me into thinking longer and bigger. They were like, it's the tree in the forest. It's the tree in the forest. Whatever is in front of you at that moment is what we can focus on. Because if you're looking at this one tree, there's an entire forest out there. So even though it's this one job, there's a whole world out there for you. So even if something doesn't work out the way that you want to, even if something is pushing against your soul, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it. And that doesn't mean that you'll beholden to that for the rest of your life. There's so much more out there. And protect your art, and don't talk about it, but just do it. I think that would be the main thing, and something that our Lord and Savior Beyonce says: don't talk about it, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
such a.
Yeah, and protecting your art and making sure that you because other people's opinions can be very important. And if you blab about something that you really love, and if you talk about it and you talk about it to the wrong people that you can't trust with your dreams and your hopes, they could shut it down very easily. Absolutely. And when somebody puts one seed of doubt in you, it can grow to be a whole forest. And so it's just protecting. And it's not necessarily keeping something to yourself, but just be careful, as if you would do a child. I try to think of my career, and I try to think of my artistry as a child to a certain extent, because that child is me. I used to, I don't know where my phone is, but I have a picture of myself as a kid, because I'm like,
smart.
I'm still trying to also let that kid know that I have taken care of him, and to let that kid know that it's okay to be who they are, because that kid is what got me to where I am. And I mean, it's so cheesy, but RuPaul talked about having his picture as a kid, and that's something that I am trying to reconnect with. And I'm trying to like find again as much as I possibly can. Who is that kid? I'm gonna take care of that. If I had that kid, me as what would I do for that kid right now? And how can I do what I would do for that kid for myself? Because I want that kid to grow. I want that kid to be a somebody that's free of worry in this world. How can I do that to myself? How could I do that to the kid that is inside me? I feel like that's the beginning of Craig Cornelius' song, The Kid Inside.
I love that. I'm gonna switch my phone background.
And yay therapy.
Oh
my God, yes. Child therapy.
I love this.
Oh, that is beautiful, Richard. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. We have to wrap up. We're gonna do our rapid fires.
Dive into our rapid fire questions.
That was so beautiful. Thank you.
course.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Name one of the 7 dwarves.
Dopey.
Is your bed made right now?
No.
How often do you floss?
Every day.
If you could be transformed into one animal, which would you choose?
A cat.
Do you ever post inspirational quotes on social media?
Oh, yes.
Okay, if there's a spider in your house, do you kill it or set it free?
Kill it.
Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
Future.
Cannonball
Black
into
people don't like the past.
oh, touche. Yes, indeed. Great. That's a great answer. Cannonball into a pool or dip a toe in first?
Ooh, Cannonball.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
A Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Ooh. Good one. Okay, Spirit Flight or Greyhound Bus?
Oh, Greyhound.
That was a good one. Hey!
Yes, thank you.
We love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. This was delightful.
Yay! Thank you for tuning in. So if anybody wants to follow Richard, Richard's social media is?
Richard Riaz. That's it. Richard Riaz.
And if anyone wants to hire Richard for choreography
Please.
jobs or shows, your website,
Yes.
any other information they need?
No, just go to my Instagram. You'll get me.
All right. Richard, we love you so much. Thank
I
you
love
for
y'all.
being here.
Thank you.
much.
Bye.
Bye.